All right, welcome back to the Full Metal Cast. If you're hearing this now, you have just survived the great initial stock market correction of the summer of 24. And on top of that, Europe is descending into civil conflict while police are more focused on arresting soy jacks making mean comments on Instagram. Some kid who plays video games for a living gifted the former president a $150,000 Rolex and a Cybertruck. And Lindsey Graham begs to see one last generational conflict in the Middle East pump his stock portfolio before he bites it. And yet, despite all of this madness, I still have hope. Let's get into it. It is not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. Epictetus. It's another week of It's Never Been More Over Than It Is Right Now, caused by, of course, the initial stock market correction that erased hundreds of billions of dollars of wealth over fears of recession in the United States, as well as an AI bubble. And in the spirit of today's quote, allow me to remind you that we went through COVID, an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate, and a literal overthrowing of the standing U.S. president, all while we are actively engaged in two wars where the nuclear threat is very, very real, and still we have not descended into civil conflict or collapse. So kudos. Now, this is not an indicator that people are completely tuned out, however, though it is very true that a disturbingly large number of individuals should be required to disclose that they have been lobotomized prior to opening their mouths in any forum. But I can say with a great deal of confidence that people are looking to no longer outsource certain parts of their lives to the state. And, well, yes, civilians are on track to acquire more guns this year than last, and these are just by the book numbers and acquisitions, mind you. The number of less than legal or up to snuff firearm transfers, purchases, creations outdo this exponentially, I'm aware. I see and hear people within and without, and, throughout, outside of my sphere, buying chickens, starting a garden, learning how to work on their own house or car, joining a gym, and starting a fitness or a diet plan. And that got me thinking, those who can do. Those capable of conscious thought are able not only to take in stimulus, but they're able to decide how to react to it. And unlike their lobotomized counterparts, which I alluded to earlier, the quote from this episode contains wisdom that they can actually glean and apply to their lives. However, I will do my best to avoid sounding like a broken record, a record that only repeats itself about surrounding yourself with good people, insourcing your security as much as possible, etc., etc. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll just ramble a little bit about what I got going on in my life. It's been another long stint between episodes, I am aware, and I do fall on my sword for that. I have no discipline in that area, and I'm just not somebody who can post content on Instagram or hear myself talk about nothing. I need to feel like I am providing some level of value, and I know that is sort of counterintuitive to how you're supposed to grow a brand online, but it's just not me. I've been enjoying so much time outside in the summer and being with family and friends and, just having a good time. I don't really feel compelled to pull myself away from those activities to create just something slapped together really quickly for the purpose of putting content out regularly that I'm not really proud of. So that's my excuse for being so bad at the content flow lately. Whether it's a good or bad one is up to you. I know it's a shortcoming and a disservice to anyone who follows me. So I do apologize to the loyal few, and I will do my best to really reflect and come up with some meaningful and valuable content. It's just the boulder I push, I suppose. But that being said, I am in the process of incrementally improving and sort of tweaking, experimenting with my kit. I mentioned earlier I've upgraded to an axle eclipse belt. I had just some, I forget which brand it was. It was like a two-piece like gun belt. But finally got one with a little more structure, a little more rigidity. I'm working on upgrading some of the pouches as well. A lot of the pouches on my current belt are a little more experimental, using maybe some cheaper sort of Amazon pouches that are in the style of like a name brand pouch to see if that's, what I really want to roll with, if it's worth, investing the money in a whole, re-upping of pouches for a particular brand or style that I want on the new belt, which is what I'm currently working on as well with the axle. But for anyone who does own an axle eclipse belt, let me know how you deal with the excess material for the clip or the buckle that allows you to sort of size it, and if you will, like retain it. Currently, I have too much material coming off sort of at the belt's like buckle or the clip rather, that I can't really secure it with the Velcro that they provide without it just sort of coming loose and falling around. Do you just cut it at a certain length? I'm just not sure. Maybe I'm not going about securing it right. So anyone who does have one, chime in, let me know, DM me, don't care how. The second question I have is the Cobra or Raptor buckle upgrade worth it? And if so, do I go with a Cobra or a Raptor? I'm not really sure what the difference are between the two. If there is any meaningful difference at all. But I purchased mine from TaxSwap, and I had it come with like this, just the standard clip, the stock clip. It's only marginally annoying to take off. It's not too bad putting it on, but taking it off, it's a bit of a bitch. So looking at maybe dropping the couple, $30 or so to upgrade to a buckle option. But curious because there's two options. I've only seen Cobra buckles. I'm not familiar with Raptor buckles, so anyone who has experienced either, let me know. The drop leg on it right now that I have is just like the Safariland sort of rubber like adapter thing that the belt sort of just threads through. It's a little big, it's a little chunky. So I am looking at switching over to a True North Concepts MHA or modular holster adapter just to save some space on the belt. So if anyone has any experience with those or even has one they're willing to part with, let me know. I'd be interested in buying it off of you. It just looks like it would save a little bit of space compared to the chunkier Safariland one. That's something I am interested in because I mount a magazine pouch horizontally at the 12 o'clock on the belt, meaning that the buckle or the clip ends up at like my 5:30, 4 o'clock sort of area. So as much space as I can save on the right side, the bet, which is that's sort of why I'm going about looking at the True North Concepts acquisition there. And a quick tip on the note about the magazine pouches at different angles and experimenting with them. I know I mentioned I'm playing with like a cheap Amazon pouch, and sort of rotate it around different positions to see if I like it. I do recommend that, especially if you're looking at maybe swapping out all your pouches for a particular one. Start with like maybe one, the cheapest Chinesium option you can find, knowing that it's just for dry fire. It's just for like your practice range days, and understand that it's not going to live on your belt or your full-time belt. If that doesn't work for you, you can't really find, a close enough knockoff to what you're looking to get, I suggest buying a Tech Lock. Those are sort of the mounting solutions that Texas Holsters or TXC Holsters uses, which is actually, they're very much compatible on their own with many other sort of like standalone, like hard style like mag pouches, and they've allowed me to use a lot of the ones that I've currently owned to play with them and mount them at different angles. Like the AR mag pouch I have in my 12 o'clock, it had sort of holes for screws in the back of it, which allowed me to mount it to a Tech Lock horizontally with some zip ties, of course. But that allowed me to at least train and practice with the horizontally mounted 12 o'clock AR mag, and make sure it was something that was comfortable for me on the belt and something that worked well as far as, enhancing my reload speed, which it did. So my little fun fact. Maybe buy some 3M Velcro strips with it too if the Tech Lock doesn't come with it, just to really hold it on the belt at the position you want it to. But that's my little consumer advice for the day. On the comms front, I finally got to wire my plate carrier with my push-to-talk and antenna routing cable. As a member of the Fang gang, I know that at the very least, I'm going to need some sort of enhanced antenna to be able to get some use out of that budget radio. So I purchased a cable that sort of runs from the antenna plug on the radio. I routed it through, like up and through my left shoulder pad and down the molly on the back of the plate carrier. And then it's sort of like a 90-degree connector on it, which allows me to sort of thread like the longer whip antenna also through the molly, going straight up the back of the carrier as well. That way it just sort of keeps it out of the way, free and clear of everything in the front, and not taking up any real estate that I need to use, or it's sort of out of my workspace, if you will, while still enabling me to sort of rock an enhanced or improved antenna. Also on the comms front, I got the Disco 32 push to talk. Again, I have a JPC, I believe it's a 1. Yeah, I have a JPC 1. And currently the PTT is just clipped to that sort of rubber part that connects the shoulder strap to the front plate bag. It feels secure enough for just what I've been doing on the range, LARPing around the woods. However, I know it's not secure, so at some point I'm going to buy a comm sled from Faro, I believe, or something like that, just to make sure it's not going anywhere once it's actually on the plate carrier. So I'll look to make that marginal purchase as soon as it sort of makes sense. Now the topic of plate carriers, I'm thinking about doing some sort of like kit video or episode or rundown with the fellas one day where, 3 or 4 of us are all in a room. We all haul our shit in. On a video, we go over what we have, why we have it, why it's where it's at, just sort of things like that. Maybe full kit rundowns are a little outplayed. They're a little long, I think, especially if you're going to go for more than, 1 or 2 people. I think EDC sort of rundowns are also already played out. So one thing I'm thinking about doing when the fellas go over this week is sort of doing just like a truck gun kit rundown or like an active response sort of like rundown, what you have, you carry around your truck when you feel like tensions are a little high and you may need extra sort of options to move around and maneuver to get home or back and forth to one place or another in the event something does kick off where you're at. Let's see. Chest rigs, yeah. I am in the market for a serious one now, though. I own a T-Rex Ready rig that I bought on Black Friday last year. I like having it in my car, sort of in the same vein as that active shooter response kit, if you will. I'll just seem like it sort of fit really well into that niche, given its like low profile nature. I just added a glove clip to it and a mini dangler when I got it. And again, I really started carrying that around and keeping it in my car with one of my rifles or carbines when the latest Middle East sort of drama kicked off. I felt the need to do it because the state that I'm in is a very dense Muslim and sort of Jewish population. So the possibility for something to get a little hairy very quickly just seemed a little more real. And it was just sort of that peace of mind, having enhanced sort of medical and firepower on me in the event something did go crazy. That sort of gave me the confidence that, if I had to get home, if I had to fight my way home in a sort of horrific event, I'd be better equipped to do so with that in, the Jeep than not, or just carrying around my, EDC pistol. I have been eyeing an onward research rig, though, for some time. I've sort of been convinced that may be the route to take. I see a lot of other people rocking it and saying great things about it. So when they are in stock and I have, it makes sense to do so, I'm probably going to pull the trigger on a real one. If there are comparables to that I'm not considering, please let me know. And I think I'm going to end up leaving the kit discussion there, though, and save the rest for some sort of rundown episode, maybe. I don't want to spoil too much. When it comes to firearms, the main area for improvement, I will say, would be IR capabilities for myself. But that's on the back burner. I need to train more seriously at night and have the means to train more seriously at night, mostly just like location. But my money will just go further in other areas at the moment, ammo and training. That's sort of where it's going to be focused. But on my story today, I asked which topics should I discuss in this episode, and I received responses ranging from grilled cheeses to voter fraud. So to address these two extremes, use fancy cheeses and Hawaiian rolls on your grilled cheese. Be sure to make them on a cast iron with real butter. Send pictures. And 2, The selection in this country is the least transparent popularity contest in which only those who promise the most kickbacks to corporations and other tyrants are allowed to run. Nothing about it is democratic. So the concern over, potential fraud is just a loose thread. Keep on pulling it, brother. One topic, though, that did stand out was one that I have spoken on in prior episodes, but it is absolutely worth reiterating in my mind. And that is, if you think you are just going to be the lone wolves or an army of one, when shit hits the fan, you will simply die. You need community. You can't just be a rifleman, even though it is a great foundation and those are skills that everyone would benefit from knowing. But if you ignore sourcing or prepping food, water purification, shelter, medical communications, etc., you're just going to wither and die or fall to others who have figured this out before you. And I think one area that's going to make people recognize this, and it's still an area that more closely is tied to sort of the rifleman skill tree than the others, is the prevalence of civilian drones in conflicts. And I think people will realize that having a drone or anti-drone specialist or specialists within a unit will prove to be highly valuable for those in combat. And that's just sort of my prediction. I know for a fact I need to become more well-versed in medical personally, not even just to a specialized level, but just to sort of be baseline for my own good. Same also applies with radio operation and comms for me. But I think the drone stuff is going to be something that we, the people, need to figure out as well. It just is another thing in the ever-expanding list of skills that are going to really set you apart and, prove to help you live longer and just be deadlier should push come to shove. With that being said, though, on to some fun things, because, again, having fun is just part of your purpose in life. The Woodward Dream Cruise is coming up soon. I did an episode last year on it, and I think I'm probably going to be up north for it, unfortunately. I would have done anything to have set up shop with a table, a tent, peddling MDOT as gay merch, because that is the target demo for that, honestly. But for the car guys, please get out and enjoy it. Woodward, to me and to thousands of others, is a very special road. Where passion for cars and driving sort of just transcends generations, races, and genders. It's one of those rare things in life that is just completely devoid of politics, so long as the cops decide just to fuck off and let you enjoy the sights and sounds peacefully. It's one of those things that every time I see it, I do get a little, little teary-eyed. I get a little choked up. It's just an incredible display of shared humanity and joy. And those kind of things just get me, every single time. And some of the more recent ones before, the Dream Cruise are just, the Dream Cruise and Woodward was a regular thing for me because I had to take it, pretty frequently here. Because, it was the first highway, I believe, in the U.S. It's a pretty big deal, a pretty big road. But when COVID was ending and college football was allowed to be held live in stadiums again, it was Wisconsin versus Penn State. And for those who don't know, Wisconsin at the start of the third quarter or the fourth, I can't remember now, they play jump around in the stadium. Everyone's singing, everyone's jumping. It's like part of their tradition there. And so I'm watching this in a hotel room. I was in Wisconsin for a wedding at the time, completely by myself because everyone was getting ready at the time. I wasn't in the wedding party. And they didn't cut the commercial break. They kept it on for the special occasions. It was the first one back after a couple of years. And thank God they showed it, because to watch everyone just losing it, making that stadium shake, and just going nuts, just having such a good time together, completely putting aside any and all differences and just focused on enjoying the moment and this shared sort of display of humanity, like I said. I was literally in the hotel room and just teary-eyed watching this thing, which sounds so stupid, but it just moved me. It was just such a beautiful thing. And in the same vein, again, after COVID, when live concerts were allowed to happen, I saw Des Rocks at L Club in downtown Detroit. First concert post-COVID. Mind you, I had The Heavy, I had All Them Witches, and I had Rage Against the Machine all cancel, all concerts I was supposed to go to during COVID. This is the first one back. I get in there, first time ever seeing them live. I had only saved a few of their songs at the moment, and of course, I just lost it. People were so fired up to be back. And it was just an awesome moment. But that being said, if you are not a gearhead and you have places to be during the Woodward Dream Cruise, stay as far away from Woodward Avenue as possible. Everything's closed, and gridlock is to be expected all day long. So you're warned. And in a new thing I want to start doing, I'm going to start sharing my bests from the week. My list of favorite things that I saw, I ate, I smoked, I drank, whatever, from the week prior. So the best thing I ate this week, I have two, one from a restaurant, one that I made. The restaurant is Owl, ironically enough, on Woodward Avenue. For breakfast on Sunday morning, I had a fried chicken breakfast sandwich with a fried egg, and easily maybe one of the top 10 greatest things I've ever eaten in my life. If you're around Woodward Avenue, and definitely stop by Owl. It's very unique, very interesting. You'd probably drive right past it without noticing it because the sign is very interesting. But they have one of the most unique menus I've ever seen, and excellent food. The best thing I ate last week was gnocchi with vodka sauce topped with breaded chicken cutlets and fresh burrata. That sort of speaks for itself, but the richness of that gnocchi and just the sort of zestiness and the crunchy nature of that fried chicken, tempered with the cool and freshness of the burrata, it was everything. That combined bite was blow your mind no matter what. So I don't know how I'm going to top that next week, but we'll see. The best thing I smoked happened to be a Mil Diaz Special Edition Toro I had on the boat over the weekend. And actually the one I had was a little dried out. It sort of flaked apart when I cut it. And it was not from a full metal humidor, mind you. It was from my dad's sort of very large humidor with a, automatic humidifying agent and electronic sort of monitoring system. The full metal humidor retains its humidity and keeps your cigars fresher than even one of those I've found. It also had some draw issues, but the flavor was great, and it was a very pleasant smoke in the 90-plus degree heat in the middle of the lake with no wind. And sort of what I had with that lands in my best thing I drank, and that is a homemade Radler / Shandy. It's something I've been doing a lot more, especially in the summer. I'll take a Modelo, soda, fresh lemonade, and I'll pour half to 2/3 of the Modelo in like a Yeti, depending on how large it is. And then, the rest would be just like top it off with some soda, some lemonade. It's outstanding with a cigar, and it's just very, very refreshing on a hot day. You put some ice in there too. You can't go wrong. And I know that may make some of you beer purists sort of cringe, but you got to try it, especially when it's one of those days where you step outside and you just sweat in a wall, of humidity. It is all that. And I think I'll close this little shorter solo episode. I have the fellows coming over later this week to record, with applying the quote to the real world. And so when you're seeing clips and headlines, especially, tied to those with the protests and riots in Ireland and the UK right now, you're going to feel some sort of way. You're going to feel compelled to side with one of the two factions being portrayed because you're a human being. But there's a third option. There's a third sort of faction you can identify with or against when looking at these images. Don't allow your emotions to control your thoughts. Take a second and decide how you wish to view and think about these scenarios, and you will find that the third party, in this particular theater, is indeed the state. These countries were made powder kegs by their governments who turned their back to their masters and allowed the tensions to rise to the levels where they are now. And if I were to invoke Pillar 4, my favorite pillar, we are incapable of seeing beneath the surface. Therefore, the people of the UK and Ireland are taking their frustrations out on their fellow man, since that is just the thing that's right in front of them. It's no different than people focusing on taking away guns when someone commits a mass shooting. I will say, though, that in this vein, the Irish seem to be sticking a little more to their roots, though, and are aiming their rage at the state or the police more than their UK counterparts, which is always cool to see when you're watching cop cars burn in the streets of Ireland. But at the end of the day, we are always much stronger together and united against the state, so long as the people next to you all respect the natural rights of all men and women. And imagine if all the people you see fighting in the streets and trying to hunt each other down were on the same side, marching toward their representatives. If I may sort of use a real-world example where this very much took place recently, Bangladesh. Those who don't know, on August 5th, just 2 days ago from when I'm recording, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh fled the country and resigned after college students essentially overthrew her. They originally started taking to the streets protesting civil service quotas. They believe that they unfairly benefited loyalists to the ruling party, and the demonstrations turned massive and bloody, unfortunately. But all things considered, only 90 people died during those riots, and the result was the overthrowing of an entire government. And this just happened. So take some notes. These are just some college students. This wasn't an organized militia. This wasn't some giant gathering or organized gathering to protest or riot. The college students just hit the fucking streets and got to work. Unfortunately, though, what's sort of working against us and everyone in this scenario, just because we're human, the masses are likely not incapable, but they're less likely to drop the prospects of wielding the ballot like a weapon and aiming the state at those not like them with the hopes that their counterparts will be enslaved to their ideology. The only winner in this scenario, every single time, is the state, however. We come running to them every election, begging for them to drop the hammer on the other side no matter what, as if we're justifying their existence in tyranny. We are always left with fewer freedoms and less safety, regardless of the tyrant behind the desk. In cases like these, though, I beg you to seek to understand where people's displeasures stem from and understand that the way it is expressed likely is going to be misplaced due to our inability as humans to think rationally. We're emotional thinkers, simple as that. Knowing this and sort of keeping this in the forefront of your mind is the first step in being able to see things more objectively with a cooler head. And that is an objectively valuable ability regardless of the time or the setting. A lot to think on and reflect on. I understand the last sort of several sentences there. I brushed over a lot. Looking into that Bangladesh thing, though, that's been kept very quiet, shockingly enough. I saw more about the farmer protests in the UK than I've seen about this, and this is a way bigger deal. Yeah, give that a little look-see, because it's pretty based, and something I'm going to be reading up on a little bit more as well. But until next week, shit's always going to be crazy, but try to have some fun, be around good people, keep your shits tight, keep it high and dry, make sure you're ready for whatever it is as best as you can. And that sort of allows you to deal with things to the best of your ability and ensure the outcome that you want is the most likely one. But outside of things, things that are outside of your sort of sphere of influence, your sphere of control, don't become a slave to them. Don't worry about them. Don't let them sort of keep it down. Keep on keeping on. And I'm always here to talk as well, whether you know me personally or not. Reach out, hit me up. I'd be more than happy to help wherever I possibly can. But until next week, stay metal. Thank you.